Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is part two of a three-part series that I'm putting together all about record triggered flows. This is meant for beginners who are just learning how to build flows, or maybe you've built a few flows and you're looking for best practices, then this video is for you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm putting out new Salesforce content all the time. If you haven't done part one, make sure you check part one out if you want to follow along. We're going to be updating the same flow that we built in part one, but you can just start in part two and kind of build out the flow as I'm going on if you want. But today in part two, I'm looking at my notes here if you're wondering what I'm looking at. So today we're going to be updating our flow to fire when a case is updated and status equals closed and type equals problem. We're going to update a custom field on the related account called last problem reported date with today's date. Now, if you're not familiar, need a little refresher, it's been a little bit since you did part one. In part one, we created a record trigger flow that fires when a case is created and the priority equals high. And then it auto populates the escalated checkbox and assigns the owner of that case to a queue. So, what you may have realized with what we're wanting to do in part two is we're going to need to redefine our entry criteria into the flow and have it just be on create or update. And then we're going to add a decision element to handle and check if a case is created or if it's being updated. And then we're going to add in some logic from there. But we're just going to go ahead and jump straight into the video. All right, as you can see, we're back in Flow Builder. So if you don't already have your record triggered flow up that we created, go ahead and get that up. And we're going to start making edits. Now, as you can see, let me just close this out. I have the entry criteria open, and you can see this flow fires on create or up or on just create, but we need to change this to fire on creator update because our next set is only going to be firing on update. And this only fires on create. So to update the entry criteria for the flow, you're just going to go ahead and change this to a record is created or updated. And I'm going to remove this entry criteria because we're going to handle that with decision elements now. So we're going to go ahead and change this to none. So that means every time a case is created or updated, then it will flow into our record trigger flow here past the start element. It'll actually fire the flow. What we're going to do, close this out here. We're going to add in a decision element. So go ahead and hit the plus sign. You can type decision or you can scroll down and find the element. And we can name this whatever we want, but I think what we want to call this, we're going to call this created or updated. And we're going to name this one created. And the default outcome we'll call updated. So now we need to create some sort of entry criteria or decision criteria for our flow. I'm going to close this out. So what is the best way to tell if a record has just been created in Salesforce? Is a record trigger flow. It got created, it's triggering the flow, but how can we tell once it's past the start element if it was created or updated? Well, you can do this is by creating a formula to look at it. So in our toggle toolbox, we can open this up, we can hit new resource, and we're going to select formula. Now we're going to name this formula. I just put FOR. This is going to be a Boolean formula, so I'll name it B with an underscore, and we'll call this is new formula. You can name it whatever you like. Data type is going to be a Boolean. And actually in this insert function, you can just click in and start typing is and then new. And you'll see it checks if the record is new and returns true if it's new. Otherwise, it returns false. All you got to do is click into that and then hit check syntax. And we are good. Now we're going to hit done. Go ahead and hit save as new version because I activated my flow in the last video. Now that that's saved, we can move on to the next part. Now we can click back into our decision element and hit edit. And now we can have our check our formula here. So the resource is this new formula resource we created. 4b is new formula. And we're going to say equals true, which means what? That it is a brand new created record. We're going to hit save. Now it's probably actually a good time to go ahead and test this decision element to make it work, make sure it works. Close this little window out, drag this in the center. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit the debug button. And we're going to run this on create. We need to select a record. I'm just going to select the first one. And we're going to hit run. And as you can see, our formula triggered, or excuse me, our record was triggered and because it was created or updated, and it ran down and our decision only checked it. But to verify, you can look over to your right side and you can see that the formula here evaluated to true because it is a new record. So we know that our is new formula is working properly. Now, the next thing we could do, we could actually do a couple of different ways, but I'm going to build it kind of the way that I think is best. So we could add in more entry criteria here to be more than created or updated. We could be, hey, it has to be a newly created record, and it has to be just like it was before. The priority for it would have to be high, just like it was in the previous flow. But maybe you're going to use this as a record triggered case flow and you're going to have a lot of different criteria you're going to evaluate on. So maybe you want to leave this as just created or updated and then add an additional decision element within these branches so that you can handle more and more use cases, not just a singular flow for one issue. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close this out and I'm going to hit the plus sign under the created. I'm going to add another decision element. And we can call this high priority. And this one can be other. You can call it whatever you want. It's just the default side. And one thing that I do is I always put the happy path, the path that it would follow for record updates and stuff down the left side. And the right side is the non-happy path where it doesn't meet the criteria. That's just a design thing that I do most of the time, but that's totally up to you. And then this is a label. We want to name this something intuitive, something that's useful to us, right? So what are we going to name this? I would name this high priority case. I misspelled that, but that is okay because we have spell check. Add that in. And then so here, so when it comes in, we're going to have the triggering case record, and we're going to look at the priority, and it has to equal what? Has to equal high. Now what we're going to do is we're going to close this little out, and we need to move this get case and update triggering case record because we know that is tied to updating it to high priority. So all you have to do is click in and hit cut, and then click it where the plus sign is on where you want it to go, which for us is under high priority, and it adds it. It moves it. We're going to cut it again. Boom. And if you're new to Flow, you also can click into these and you can copy the element, which will make an exact copy of it. You can paste it, and it just puts copy one of in front of everything for the APIs. I don't really want to do that. But let's go ahead and save this so we don't lose our work. Now, just to recap, we have basically broken out this flow into two different sections, right? We have it, the created or updated. So now any case we can handle if it's created or updated, and we need to do stuff to it, right? Now it'll handle the high priority case from part one. And now we're going to build out this other branch for being for the new part two case. Now, something to note is probably thinking, well, this is going to fire every time a case is created or updated. A lot of times, if it's a real world scenario, maybe you have a checkbox that's like case final, and that checkbox is checked via flow, and you could add just that to the entry criteria of a flow like this. That way, you know, that record doesn't trigger the flow anymore. That would be the easiest way to handle something like that. But this one is just a fun sandbox test case. I am aware that this will fire indefinitely on all cases whenever they are created and updated, but you would eventually down the road want to have a checkbox that says final case or case final or case closed or whatever and add that to your entry criteria so it doesn't run all the time. But back to the build here. So as part of our build, we want this to be when a case is updated and the status equals closed and type equals problem. All right, so to do that, we are going to have to add in another decision element. So this is the updated path, right? We've updated our flow, the fire when a case is updated, and now we need to check if the status equals closed and type equals problem. To do this, we are going to add in another decision element. And we're going to add it here. So you hit your plus sign and decision. And we're going to call this, I don't know, you could name it the name of a process because under the updated, maybe you're going to be checking multiple different processes. But we're going to call this problem with a question mark. And then I'm going to name this yes, comma, problem. And then you can call this no. All right. So under our problem, what is our two conditions? Well, we need the status to equal closed. Let's do that first. Click in here. We're going to start typing triggering case and status equals. Click in here. You can see the values or you can start typing them. Closed. We're going to do an and condition. It automatically defaults to that, but you could, if you need to, change that. We're going to hit that down. And what's the next one? We need to say type equals problem. So in here again, start typing triggering. And then we're going to type, we're going to type, case type equals, and oh, there is no problem pick list value because case type is a pick list value that's defined for us, and these are what they have put in there. So we need to add a status in. So this is actually a good problem to have because you get to see how to add a pick list value if you don't already know how to do that. So let's just go out here and we're going to go to in the setup. So get there if you're not already there. Hit Object Manager. Just go ahead and type case. Select case. And over here on the left side, fields and relationships, select that. And if there's a lot of fields, you can use the quick find to find it, but there's not many fields in here. So we're going to just scroll, or what's this start typing here? Case type. Maybe it's just called type. It is just called type. Now, to add a new pick list value, hit new down here in the case type pick list values. And we're going to name this one problem. And as you can see, we've added a pick list value. Now, one thing of note that I think this is good. When I put this project together, I wasn't thinking that pick list value wasn't there, and we would need to add it. But I'm glad I did this because as an admin, you may forget to add a pick list value that you want to reference. As you can see, it's not showing up. That's a problem. I'm just going to get rid of that line item for a second. I'm going to hit save. Go ahead and hit the refresh. And when we refresh, we should be able to see this pick list value now. So go ahead and open that decision element up again. Add you a condition. Type triggering. Go to triggering case. Start typing type. Equals. And now when you look, there is a problem pick list value. So now we have successfully added that pick list value in. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit save again because I want to make sure that I don't lose any of my work. Now that we've added in this criteria into our decision element, we are now ready to update the triggering record on the yes problem side. We'll close this out and we're going to go ahead and add a plus sign here. And let's do an update triggering record component, which is just an update component with this value selected. And we're going to call this update triggering case record. And these API names have to be unique. I'm just going to put in parentheses problem. And that way it won't give us an error message because the API name is different. You could just change the API name, but I generally like to keep the label and API name the same. Now, originally, I was going to have us create a custom field called last problem reported date, but I actually had a better idea. We're going to add this into the description. That way, we don't have to go create a custom field for this. And we can just really, it's about the flow testing, not how to create fields, this project. So, in the field, we're going to put description. And there's a couple ways you can actually handle this. So, description is a text field, it's not a date field or anything. So, we could generally just type in there was a problem. And when we run this, it will input there was a problem straight into that field, which is fine. But I actually would like to do something a little bit more complex, nothing too crazy, but maybe a little more complex than that. I'm going to add a new resource. So over here in the toolbox, go ahead and select new resource. Now, I know this is a text field, so we could create a formula resource that's a text field if we wanted to add some values in there to do some merge fields. But I also know you can use a text template with this field. Now, I'm going to call this text underscore um, text underscore. We'll call this problem description. And we'll go ahead and put in last problem reported date with a colon. And we can actually insert today's date from this resource because we can use the running flow interview. Here it is. And we can put the current date in. And what that's going to do is insert it exactly how it looks here, but with today's date. So it doesn't matter if the flow runs tomorrow. Whenever this flow is triggered, it's going to update with the current date that the flow is triggered. Now we're going to go ahead and hit done. We're going to hit, we'll wait to save it. We'll go ahead and add it back into our update element because we left this blank. And if you start typing text, see text T problem description, and we're going to select that. Let's hit save. That way we have our work. So next, we are going to be debugging this flow. Hit debug. Now we want to make sure we select updated. And when you scroll down or look down here, you can select the record you'd like to update. In just a second, it loads in and we can set all our update values. So what do we need to do? It needs to be a status of closed and the type needs to equal problem. So that's our two criteria, right? Let's go ahead and hit run. And it ran properly, as you can see. Now let's see if we updated the elements properly. So in the update element, hit the drop down, scroll down a little bit, and we can see what we have. And as you can see, it looks like it inserted these little characters in here, but we can fix that. I'll show you how to fix that. But we update the records field. Description equals the text template, which is problem reported date equals June 1st, 2025, which is when I'm filming this. And it inserted these little slash P's in. That's because it's like a rich text field inserting to this, but we can fix that real easy. So we'll hit edit flow, come back over here, hit our text template, open it up. And if you switch to plain text, you'll actually see them. You can remove these out just like that. And when you do that, we hit save and we're going to debug it again to check this. Those will be removed now. I've done this with many different projects in real life, and it's actually good to show you this because as an admin, I had to figure out what in the world to do when things like that happen. You have to work around them. So this is a good real life scenario to see of like how to fix things when weird things happen like that. So now you can see in the quotations here, last problem reported date with today's date. That's going to be inserted into our description field. Now hit edit flow. That takes us out of debug mode. And this is what our flow looks like. Now, as you can see, it's running in rollback mode. So to actually test this, I'm going to need to activate the flow and actually go make the changes so we can see it populate in real time. Let's go ahead and activate. All right, beautiful. let's go find a case record to update. I think I have one sitting here. Here it is. This is the one we were debug testing. Let's hit our pencil icon, change that to, well, we don't have a closed status in our pick list. That's weird. And I think this is a sandbox limitation. I went ahead and did a quick research, and we need to change something in our support settings in Salesforce to be able to see the close status. So to do that, you're going to want to be in setup and quick find, just type support. And then if I use Control F and use closed, and right here it says show closed statuses in case status field. I'm going to hit edit, and we're going to want to make sure we check this, because that should allow the closed status to show, because I know there's a closed pick list value. We check that box. Let's go back here and refresh our tab. And now let's hit the pencil icon, hit the status, and now closed is there. Thank goodness. That was wild. So I'm glad we worked through that as well. Sandboxes can be very fun. We also need to update our type as well. And it is right here. We're going to set that to problem and hit save. Now we should have something in our description, which we do, which is last problem reported date equals June 1st, 2025. Perfect. So our flow worked perfectly. Now you may remember from the first video, we actually talked about updating a related record, which is true, but I wanted to do this first because it's easier to set this up under a triggering case record, and I wanted to show you that. Now let's update the related account to our case. I have a related account on here tied to this case, and it's called United Oil and Gas Corp. And let's just say that we don't want this to actually display under the description for our case, but we actually want it to be under this account name under the description field down here. So this one says world's third largest oil and gas company. That's wonderful. I'm just going to clear that out because this is a created one from Salesforce, like a created standard account that comes in with the sandbox. And I cleared that out. So let's just go back to our flow. And we are actually going to get rid of this thing. So all this in here is description equals text template that we created, but we're going to reuse that text template. But let's just get rid of that. Okay, so the scenario is the same. It's been updated and the criteria matches, but we actually want to update the related account. How can we do that? Actually, pretty simple. So we're going to go ahead and hit the plus sign, and we're going to hit an update records element right here. And we can name this update related account. Hit the tab to put in the API name. But what we're going to do is you're actually going to go ahead and specify conditions to identify records and set fields manually. So we'll select that, and we're going to type account. Now, this is how we're going to filter down our account records. So what do we want to filter by? I'd like to filter by ID because that is the most reliable thing you can, that 18 or 15 digit ID, right? So the ID equals, and right here, you're going to start typing triggering, or excuse me, might be able to just, there we go. Scroll down, it's the money currency record. You're going to select that. And then now when you're in here, you're actually going to select account ID because that is the related account ID to the case. Go ahead and click that. So now we have record account ID. So those, that's the filtering. That's how we're going to find our account. What I'm trying to say. Sorry. Now we want to set the value on here, right? So we're going to set the description and we're going to set it to that formula just like we did before. Not the is new formula, excuse me. The text formula for problem description. Let's go ahead and click out of our little window there, and I've activated this flow, right? So we have to do a new version. Let's just save it. We're going to run a debug and see if this works for us. This is version 3. Go ahead and click debug, and we're going to edit this just like we did before. We'll select it to updated, select our, that's not the one I want. I'm going to go verify which case I want to actually update. So yeah, we're going to update case 1024. Actually, we're going to go ahead and update our case to be out of the criteria we need it to be in. We're going to set the new, and I'll leave it in the problem type because I can change in the debug and change the status and re-trigger the flow. We're going to hit debug now. We're going to do the same thing. Updated. We're going to select our case, which is 1024. And we're going to scroll down a little bit and change that status to closed. And as you can see, type is still problem. So let's see if the flow runs properly. All right, looks good. It fired and went down to the problem decision element. It was able to update the related account and no errors. Great, but let's see what values it actually put in here. So it found ID equals, and then it matches here and update the fields, and there it is. So let's see if it actually works when we activate our flow. So I just hit edit, flow, then activate. Now let's go. I'm just gonna give this a quick refresh. We're gonna edit our case record and then go check our related account. All right, so let's change this to closed. And we already have our type as problem. We're gonna hit save. It's saved. Now let's go look at our related account here. Details. Scroll down, and as you can see that last reported date, June 1st, 2025. Last problem reported date, June 1st, 2025. So that is how you update a related record. Now, I know we covered a lot today, so I want to go through and actually cover what we actually did today. So we updated our entry criteria to be created or updated. We then added a decision element that checks to see if a record has been created or updated. It does this by using the formula we created, which is the isNew formula. And if it's false, that means it's updated. True, it means it's a new record. And then we added a decision element on the created side that checks for high priority cases. And it does the updates from our previous very first flow from part 1. And then on the updated side, we were able to add in a problem decision element to check to see if the status equals closed and case type equals problem. And then we did two things. First, we updated the original triggering case record on the description field. And then I had us go in and I showed you how to update a related account record. But what we updated here is actually the description by using a text template to merge the text and the formula, kind of the flow.currentDate formula, to have last problem reported date equals today's date displayed in a text field. We were able to find that related record by matching the ID of the account record against the triggering record's account ID because it's a merge field or a lookup field on that actual case record. Now, you could add field and add in a bunch more updates if it meets your criteria, but for this, course slash demo, this is the basics of how you would go about updating a related record, updating the original triggering record, and making changes there. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will do my best to answer those. Now, I know that was a lot to cover, and I hope that it makes sense and I did a good job at explaining it and going in depth and actually going slow enough and talking it through. But in part 3, looking at my notes here, what we're going to be doing is when a case is high priority and not responded to within 2 hours, we're going to invoke a scheduled subflow to send an email alert to the manager. So we're going to be looking at schedule paths and using a subflow to do this. And then this will include some entry criteria best practices, as well as handling some flow errors, how we want to do that. But I hope you're finding this series interesting. And part 3 is the last part of this record triggered flow series for beginners. So make sure you leave a like on this video and watch out for the next video. It's coming out soon. And if you're watching this in the future, it may already exist. So make sure you check that video out. I appreciate your time and I will see you in the next video.